Princess Diana was the most famous woman in the world when she died 20 years ago. Two earlier films, Diana the Night She Died and Diana the Inquest, asked whether Diana died in an accident. The British inquest only started 10 years later. The coroner decided it had to be very open and released CCTV footage of Diana's last hours. Some was touching. Princess Diana and Dodi held hands for 8 minutes. 4 hours later, they would both be dead. When in 2008, the inquest concluded it was an accident, 1/3 of Britons were not sure it was the right verdict. 20 years on, we re-examine what happened, studying many still unanswered questions. Was Henri Paul, the driver of the Mercedes, really drunk? Where did he go on the night of August the 30th for 3 hours before he came back to the Ritz to drive the couple? Why did the French inquiry ignore much evidence, including the fact that the Mercedes crashed at 65 miles per hour, not a terrifying 100? And why did one witness allegedly commit suicide? We also reveal some answers from an anonymous witness whose claims were reported in this book.
Princess Diana worked tirelessly with Africa's most vulnerable communities and children.
Virginia, I'm only trying to highlight a problem that's going on all around the world. That's all.
Did you know as a young boy the depth of her work that she was doing?
I knew a fair bit of it, mainly because she'd come back with all these stories and full of excitement and just passion for what she'd been doing. And I sort of used to sit there as quite a sort of, surprised little boy at the time, sort of taking it all in. I never realised quite how much of an impact she had. You can feel and see when she's talking and visiting that she really connects and cares about what she's doing. I applaud her for all her, her dedication and her drive in doing that. And it was, I think, that infectious enthusiasm and the energy that she had that really rubbed off on me for causes such as this.
It was not just desperate children. Princess Diana often visited Broadmoor, Britain's asylum for the criminally insane.
I was very keen to actually have a visit to the hospital because it actually had quite an impact on the people she met. She met some of the most dangerous patients, particularly female patients, but she was able to talk with them, and they were quite open in the discussions that they had with her. She just had a natural ability, which I hadn't actually seen, and haven't to this day seen in anybody else.
I have always been impressed with the commitment of the staff, who have a very difficult task in providing care to patients, some of whom are very seriously mentally disordered. I know that the centre, with its academic unit and Phoenix therapy unit, will further enhance the work of the hospital. It therefore gives me great pleasure to formally open the Richard Dadd Centre.
It's a great shame that she's not here, and that every day depending on what I'm doing, I wonder what it would be like if she was here, and what she would say, and how she would be making everybody else laugh as well. Who knows what the situation would be, or what the world would be like if she was still around. So, no, there's all sorts of thoughts and emotions that come running through, especially the fact that I was here last in 1993, running around with Donald Duck and all those characters with her. And now I'm back here, at 31 years old, and try my best to make her proud.
"10 years before Diana died, her protection officer, Barry Manicky, died in a motorcycle crash.
I think he was bumped off. But there we are, I'll never know.
According to Lady Campbell, Manicky was more than just a bodyguard.
I know as a fact that Diana was having a confidential relationship with that detective. Diana believes that MI5 opportunistically used this event to rid itself of a threat to the monarchy.
In October 1996, Princess Diana wrote this letter to her butler, Paul Burrell. 2 weeks later, he released it to the press, blanking out the name of the person Diana thought was plotting her death.
I am sitting here at my desk today in October, longing for someone to hug me and encourage me to keep strong and hold my head up high. This particular phase in my life is the most dangerous. X is planning an accident in my car, brake failure, and serious head injury.
That same year, Diana revealed her own fears to her lawyer, Lord Mishcon.
I told HRH that if she really believed her life was being threatened, security measures, including relating to her car, must be increased. I frankly could not believe that what I was hearing could be credible as to this alleged conspiracy, and sought a private word with Commander Jeffson, who surprisingly said he himself half believed in the accuracy of what HRH had said.
Commander Jeffson was the princess's private secretary.
I can honestly say, as somebody that worked with Diana for as long as I did, and prior to that, I worked with her 2 young sons, I saw Diana as a very level-headed individual, working under extreme difficulties, not least of all because of the public life that she was leading, but also within the framework of a very unhappy marriage. I never saw any evidence of somebody that was unstable, mad, or paranoid.
Princess Diana's death inspired many books and films. The most famous, The Queen, criticized the royals, but never asked if the crash itself was just an accident. Tony Blair caught the mood sensitively.
Our thoughts and prayers are with Princess Diana's family, in particular her 2 sons, the 2 boys. Our hearts go out to them. We are today a nation in Britain in a state of shock, in mourning, in grief that is so deeply painful for us. She was a wonderful and a warm human being.
Investigating magistrate and the prosecution wanted to come to an end because there was too much pressure, because no one would know the real truth anyway, so it had to be stopped. So it was stopped, and of course not everything has been inquired on.
In July 1997, Princess Diana was a free woman, divorced and just out of a relationship with a brilliant heart surgeon, Hasnat Khan. She went to holiday with her sons on the yacht belonging to Mohammed Al Fayed. Three weeks later, she went back alone. Many of these pictures have never been seen before. New Zealand's Women's Day gave a titillating account of Diana's new romance with Dodi Al-Fayed. Princess of the Paradox, Princess Diana yo-yoed between posing for pictures and pleading for privacy. And she made her new romance with Dodi Al-Fayed very public. On Saturday, August the 30th, Princess Diana and Dodi flew from Sardinia to Paris. These pictures caught a historic moment.
Là, on voit Trevor et Keith Winfield qui descendent de l'avion avec des bagages.
The first time the four people who would travel in the doomed Mercedes met.
Là, nous, à ce moment-là, on était à peu près vers au niveau de la douane. Pareil. Là, on aperçoit Henry Paul.
Henry Paul, the deputy head of security at the Ritz, was close to Dodi. Paul was both a trained driver and pilot.
Henry Paul, who was the second in charge of security at the Ritz Hotel and was sort of press-ganged into being the chauffeur that night at the last minute, he was a long-standing agent for MI6, an agent in terms of supplying information to MI6 about the goings-on in the Ritz Hotel in return for cash. And he'd been working for MI6 since, well, I'd seen his file for the first time in 1992, and from memory he'd been working for MI6 for a few years prior to that.
The security connections were confirmed by Paul's best friend.
Moi, j'ai toujours su qu'il avait des rapports avec les services secrets, mais dans le cadre de son travail. Pas dans un cadre d'aller trahir qui que ce soit, ou de monter des opérations à son compte. Ça, c'est complètement, encore une fois, fantaisiste.
C'est ça, c'est le fait qu'il occupe cette fonction dans cet hôtel qui l'a mis en rapport.
Évidemment.
Et anglais?
Mais anglais, de tout, je veux dire...
Tout type de service secret.
Arabe, israélien, tout ce que vous voulez. Je veux dire, à partir du moment où cet hôtel-là n'a pas spécialement une clientèle plutôt qu'une autre.
Henry Paul accompanied the couple to the Villa Windsor, where Edward VIII and Mrs. Simpson had lived, a property the Al-Fayed family had bought.
I think she was aware that she was a potential Duchess of Windsor, a sort of loose cannon who they were going to watch very carefully, and she was not averse to upsetting them, and I think she quite enjoyed how much the affair with Dodi would upset everybody back at Buckingham Palace, as indeed it did, and a bit of in-your-faceness was in her nature.
The couple drove to Al-Fayed's flat near the Étoile. Then, Dodi cancelled a booking at a smart restaurant because there were so many paparazzi outside. So, Princess Diana and Dodi returned to the Ritz, the great hotel owned by Dodi's father, Mohammed Al-Fayed. The couple ate in the restaurant. She had sole, he had turbot. Then they went up to the £6,000 a night Imperial Suite. Previous occupants included Hermann Goering, Winston Churchill, and Woody Allen. Henry Paul left work at 7 p.m. The question of where he then went has not been resolved for 20 years. But we have a witness whose account was published in this book. The witness claims Henry Paul went to a bar in central Paris and then home with a lover who planted a small phial of nerve gas on him. The lover was part of the conspiracy. Henry Paul came back to the Ritz at 10 p.m.
Once Henri Paul had returned to the hotel, we see him very quickly walking in with this air of authority, which he did have, and he goes to the bar. I mean, he's been called back. We don't know exactly by who, but now he's back at work. Before that, he was off duty, doing what we don't know. We have that 2-3 hour period where we don't know exactly where he went.
The CCTV pictures show many details of Princess Diana's last hours. At 10:20, Dodi talks to the duty manager, who later said they devised a plan to fool the paparazzi. 5 minutes later, Henri Paul waves to the chauffeur who brought Princess Diana and Dodi back to the Ritz.
Henri Paul was a seasoned member of the Fiat establishment. He'd been at the Ritz for many, many years, and he was halfway up this sort of hierarchical ladder at the Ritz. And so he had this relationship, he had this contact with Dodi. The two security officers, on the other hand, are way down the bottom end, and they're waiting for pieces of information to drop off Henri Paul.
At 10:39, Henri Paul makes the first of 5 trips to the Place Vendôme, where he talks to the paparazzi for 7 minutes. Then he goes back to the bar to pick up his Ricard, an aniseed-based drink, one of 2 he had that night. Then 40 minutes before setting off, he squats on his haunches to tie his shoelaces. He balances perfectly for 43 seconds, transferring his weight from one foot to the other. Not easy to do if you are drunk.
I must admit, I was extremely surprised when I saw the bodyguards, Wingfield and Rhys Jones, sitting outside the Imperial Suite. And I was surprised at the amount of activity in the anteroom outside the suite.
The bodyguards outside were waiting to hear the getaway plan, which involved 2 Mercedes and another car. It is now 11:23. Princess Diana, Dodi, Henri Paul, and Trevor Rhys Jones go to the service lift. Trevor Rhys Jones later said he smelt no alcohol on Henri Paul's breath. Henri Paul's ultimate boss at the Ritz was then the owner of Harrods.
Dodi called me. It was about 12 o'clock. He said, I'm going now to the apartments. And he told me, it's a lot of paparazzi. I don't know what they do. The Place Vendôme is full of people. I told him, please, it's so dangerous. Just stay in a hotel. Everything is there. No need for you to go out. He told me, I think I will follow your advice. Why? After Dodi assured me that he's not going to go out, Henri Paul gone to him at 12 o'clock after Dodi talking to me and convinced him, no problem, we're going to go from the back entrance. Everything is okay. Don't worry, I know the way. And please, because you have already prepared everything there, change Dodi's mind. Dodi followed him up. And he said, because all the arrangements there, they have the champagne, they have the party there in the apartment.
This amateur video is the only record of what was happening outside the hotel. Henri Paul told the paparazzi the couple would be leaving in the Mercedes at the front. Then came the clever ploy. A second Mercedes draws up at the back of the hotel. Finally, at 20 minutes past midnight, the 4 set out from the Ritz Hotel. Henri Paul was driving. Using 2 cars might not be vintage James Bond, but it gave the couple a head start. The quickest way to the apartment was up the Champs-Élysées, but when they got to the Concorde, the car carried on to the left. It was now going away from their apparent destination. 20 years on, no one knows why they took this route.
It is a mystery why they were where they were, because there are many different ways of getting to the apartment that they were going to at the top of the Champs-Élysées without going via the Champs-Élysées.
Our anonymous witness claims the file, which had been planted on Henri Paul, was triggered by remote control and exploded when the car entered the tunnel. The nerve gas was released and made Henri Paul lose control and crash the Mercedes into the 13th pillar of the tunnel. This statement claims the plan worked. Most witnesses were either at the exit or the entrance of the tunnel, and so did not see the crash, which makes it quite astonishing the police ignored the evidence of one man who was behind the Mercedes.
Non, je commence à rentrer dans le tournant, là il y a des appels de VAR, parce que la voiture, bon, c'est vrai qu'elle roulait assez vite quand même, j'avais pas conscience quoi. Et à ce moment-là, j'entends un grand boom, c'est la voiture qui s'était éclatée contre le poteau avant.
Henri Paul and Dodi El Fayed died almost instantly.
Et donc je prends la personne qui est à l'arrière, donc pas sur le siège, mais côté qui est affalé contre le passager arrière, qui est accroupi sur le passager, sur le dossier du passager avant, au sol, et je la prends pour la mettre en arrière. Et à ce moment-là, la tête me tombe en arrière. Et je vois du sang qui coulait de son oreille et du nez. Et sur le coup, c'est marrant, je me suis dit, mais je connais cette personne.
One detail is telling. How did Patel know Princess Diana had fallen into the back of Trevor Rees-Jones's seat if he had not been there? Still alive, Princess Diana was put into an ambulance by 12:40. It stopped twice on the 3-mile trip to the hospital, which took 70 minutes. The press were told the stops were necessary because the princess's blood pressure was so low. The French inquiry never asked if this delay almost guaranteed Princess Diana would die.
Cette nuit, la princesse de Galles a été victime à Paris d'un accident de la circulation à grande vitesse. Elle a été immédiatement prise en charge par le SAMU de Paris qui a effectué la réanimation initiale. À son arrivée à l'hôpital de la Pitié-Salpêtrière, elle présentait un choc hémorragique gravissime, d'origine thoracique, puis rapidement un arrêt cardiaque. Une thoracotomie d'urgence a mis en évidence une plaie importante de la veine pulmonaire gauche. Malgré la fermeture de cette plaie et un massage cardiaque externe puis interne de 2 heures, aucune efficacité circulatoire n'a pu être rétablie et le décès a été constaté à 4 heures du matin.
The police ignored Patel's evidence that he had seen no paparazzi near the Mercedes. He was astonished, and even more astonished to be handcuffed, bundled into a van, and taken to Paris police headquarters. Patel was a fantasist, the police told the press. 3 days later, Paris Match's chief reporter had the details from Patel's lawyer.
Qu'est-ce que je sais sur Patel? Je sais qu'il est allé dans ce commissariat et je sais qu'il a été interrogé par la brigade criminelle et par qui. Je sais exactement par qui.
In 2003, Patel's lawyer told us the police behaved strangely. They even managed to lose his client's witness statement.
Sauf que, effectivement, si elle a été entendue par la police, il devrait y avoir un procès-verbal qui apparemment n'existerait pas, ou en tout cas qui n'aurait pas été produit.
Et ça vous inspire quoi, ça, le fait que...
Ça m'étonne énormément, d'autant que j'ai toujours pensé que, pour diverses raisons, que M. Petel disait la vérité. Alors je ne comprends pas très bien qu'on n'ait jamais pris en compte son témoignage.
Harrod's head of security had worked at Scotland Yard for 26 years.
I was very surprised when I learned, particularly from television footage, that the French police had not isolated the tunnel to preserve it for evidence. Whether this was something other than a traffic accident or not, something of this magnitude involving Diana, Princess of Wales, this scene should have been preserved.
These extraordinary images of the Alma Tunnel are from that night.
Vers 7 heures du matin, je suis rentré au tunnel. J'étais sûr que c'était toujours fermé, mais c'était complètement ouvert. Et ça m'a beaucoup surpris, hein, parce que c'était Diana, elle était morte. C'était une grande affaire et j'aurais pensé que la police aurait fermé le tunnel pendant même plusieurs journées. Mais c'était complètement ouvert vers 7 heures du matin.
Shortly before dawn, the tunnel was sprayed clean with industrial solvent. Not the best way of preserving forensic evidence. If there had been the remains of a small shattered file, there's little chance it would have been found. When they heard of the deaths, New Zealand's Women's Day decided not to publish the romance revelations. Prince Charles flew to Paris to collect the body and, though Diana was no longer a member of the royal family, he insisted on the coffin being draped with the royal standard. The French appointed a middle-ranking judge, Hervé Stéphane, to carry out an inquiry in private. He worked to rules which had not changed much since Napoleon's day.
Over there they have the inquisitorial system where an officer of the state conducts the inquiry with the assistance of the police. And of course all officers of the state are paid by the state and beholden to the state. And one is, shall one say, in no circumstances sceptical as to whether or not there can be interference from above.
The French traffic police carried out an investigation, but it was kept totally secret according to a well-known photographer.
They made their own investigation, of course, but then they had pressure from the Élysée, who told them to keep it low, you know, and they were not very happy about that because they made their own inquiry and that's their job. So they don't like to be pushed, you know, when they're doing their job honestly.
Then, 36 hours after the crash, the French police changed their story dramatically.
Good evening. The Paris prosecutor's office disclosed today that the driver of the car in which Princess Diana was fatally injured had an illegal blood alcohol level. He's said to have been more than 3 times over the French limit and twice the British one.
Within just over 24 hours of this crash, when it was put out that this was caused by a drunk driver, a person drunk as a pig, driving at 192 kilometres, they were false statements. They were certainly false statements then, and we know they're false statements now. And one of the reasons we know that is that the statement as to the drink drive was put out before Henri Paul's body samples had even been fully analysed. So they didn't have an analysis report of this, and yet it was put out that he was drunk, severely drunk.
Mercedes were paid £250,000 to work out the speed of the crash. But their experts were never allowed to inspect the car. They also did not see a picture which could have told them the speed, quickly, as Chauvel heard from the traffic police.
Well, this guide woman was pissed of the pressure, and he said, I'm going to show you something. And if ever this goes bad, maybe I'll forget the photo in my office and you can sort of take it. And it was a photo taken by the flash. There's a camera, it's gone now, at the entrance of that tunnel. And you know those flash pictures when you go over 60 kilometers an hour, which is the speed limit. So the flash is a frontal flash. So you can see the people in the car. You can recognize them. And on that picture, you could recognize absolutely everybody in the car. And it says the speed and the date.
We asked Chauvel why that photo had never been released.
When they made their first comment to the press, the official comment was that the flash didn't work at that time. But then somebody found out that the guy who was driving like 5 minutes before, 10 minutes before, in his normal car, got 15 days later his ticket.
The final speed the Mercedes crashed at was 65 miles per hour, far slower than the headlines blared. As well as the speed, the key question was Henri Paul drunk? After he tied his shoelaces in a way a drunken man was not likely to manage, he spent much time with Trevor Rhys-Jones.
Did Trevor Rhys-Jones have any feeling that Henri Paul was drunk?
No, none whatsoever. He would, in fact, not have permitted in any shape or form anybody he had suspicion of having drunk to drive the car. That was an essential part of his job, to ensure the couple's security.
Then and now, the results of Henri Paul's autopsy remain baffling. It claimed he was twice over the legal limit for alcohol and also had 20.7% of carbon monoxide in his blood. Such a high level almost always leads to very erratic behavior.
Impossible. Car plus de 20% de monoxyde de carbone, on ne peut pas conduire. On ne peut pas se tenir debout. On vomit. On a mal à la tête. Donc on aura décelé chez M. Paul un comportement tout à fait anormal. Il n'aurait pas pu prendre la voiture puisque au moins le garde du corps l'aurait empêché de prendre le volant.
The first thing we wanted was an independent post-mortem, and that was denied without reason. They wouldn't give a reason why we couldn't have one. We then asked for an independent analysis of these body samples, and that was denied. We then asked whether we could be present at any subsequent examination of Henri Paul's body, and that was denied. All of these things without reason.
Henri Paul's family were denied access to their son's samples. Al-Fayed then got 4 top pathologists to review the autopsy. They made 28 damning criticisms, including:
no explanation was given for the 20.7% of carbon monoxide. The pathologists continued to present arguments which have no rigor and no scientific validity.
The French judge said the blood was the great mystery of the affair, but did not probe further. 17 days after the crash, a new development. The police announced they had found debris from a white Fiat Uno in the tunnel. They claimed the Fiat had been in front of the Mercedes and caused the crash.
The Mercedes wing mirror was found at this point, with traces of another car's paintwork and shards of a Fiat tail light. The Mercedes was thrown into the right-hand wall, then hurled across into the 13th pillar in the middle of the tunnel.
Just as the police had failed to find out where Henri Paul was before he came back to the Ritz, they did not find the Fiat Uno. Al-Fayed's private detectives did better.
It was through a diligent process of making inquiries that we found that a month after the crash, that James Anderson owned a Fiat Uno and it was sold to a local garage. Our people went to the local garage and they found the car. It had a new light fitted on the back, brake light glass, which would suggest that the other one had been broken. The police were called when we found that Fiat, and our people were arrested by the police for interfering with their inquiries.
The car belonged to a famous paparazzi, James Anderson. During the summer, Anderson, who had brilliant political connections, had photographed Princess Diana a number of times. French Special Branch was so worried they were investigating Anderson, one of their officers told us.
Au mois d'août 97, nous avons pu apprendre qu'il avait passé plusieurs jours sur le yacht où se trouvait la princesse et Al-Fayed, ce qui franchement n'est pas très normal, n'est pas très courant pour un journaliste. Il était sur le yacht même. Et pas 1 heure, mais il y aurait passé sans doute 2 ou 3 jours. Oui, ce sont des sources fiables. Et il se serait vanté dans son entourage quelque temps après d'avoir même donc photographié et même enregistré sans doute les derniers instants, du moins sous le pont de l'Alma, de la princesse Diana. C'est un témoignage qu'on a recueilli dans son entourage.
The widow of one of his friends said Anderson had boasted of being in the tunnel.
Il m'a dit qu'il y était. Il nous a dit qu'il y était. Je suis vrai, oui, il a vu l'accident et tout ça. Il n'a pas été pris par la police. Il est parti parce qu'il était malin.
Vraiment, James Anderson avait de très fortes intuitions. Il avait l'art d'approcher de nombreuses personnalités qui ensuite sont mortes subitement.
French Special Branch had a list of the people Anderson had photographed soon before they died. One was Pierre Bérégovoy, the French Prime Minister in 1993, who shot himself.
James Anderson pouvait sans doute ne pas travailler seul et être manipulé ou dirigé soit par un service ou des services, soit par une équipe qui, à un certain moment, pouvait être chargée d'éliminer ou de gêner ou de compromettre une personnalité, et Anderson faisait sans doute office d'agent de renseignement. On a évoqué les liens que pouvait avoir Anderson avec des services anglais ou services français. Cela n'a jamais été formellement prouvé, mais c'est une hypothèse qu'il ne faut pas exclure.
Anderson allegedly committed suicide by setting fire to himself in his car here, on Army land. He left no suicide note. His body was found by French commandos. Many thought he had been murdered. Our anonymous witness alleged a Briton who had masterminded the nerve gas plot, then shot Anderson. Anderson always denied he knew anything about the deaths in the tunnel, but that was not the only development. Soon after this book was published, Dr. Jim Sprott, New Zealand's senior pathologist, wrote to the author and the coroner saying the results of the autopsy were flawed. Henri Paul's samples did not show he had been drunk. He claimed the coroner never replied. Three years after Princess Diana's death, one would have expected the British inquest to start.
It's third-class treatment for a first-class tragedy. It's very difficult to get to the root of why they have delayed. There are rather feeble excuses like, we're waiting for the French inquiry. Well, the French inquiry is over. There are feeble excuses like, we want to make sure we can get all the witnesses. Well, the same witnesses are there as ever have been there.
Between 1997 and 2007, 3 coroners resigned, But one did ask the former commissioner of the Metropolitan Police to investigate the French investigation.
On the evidence available now, there was no conspiracy to murder any occupants of that car. We spent 3 weeks, mainly in MI6, looking at the records, being allowed to go where we wanted to go, and examining all of their records in a way that's never been allowed before in this country. And we found no trace of information coming from Henri Paul. We also found no trace in terms of anything that would add and give evidence which would aid the theory of conspiracy to murder and those organizations being involved in that.
But what was very noticeable, that it wasn't just British crews. It was Italian, it was French, Germans shouting out to us. This is a huge international event.
I am certain what happened to them. I know they've been murdered, and I'm sure the jury of ordinary people will confirm all my doubts for the last 10 years, which I've been fighting to find justice for my son and Princess Diana.
A special courtroom was arranged.
You will be in the public eye as no inquest jury has ever been before. We all will. But you must not let that deter you from approaching the facts dispassionately, disregarding anything you hear or have heard outside this courtroom.
When the fourth coroner, Lord Scott Baker, finally opened the inquest in 2007, he decided it had to be unusually open and released much CCTV material.
I think the footage that's been released by the coroner is actually very compelling because we get a second by second almost take on what was happening to Diana just before she died, and in that way it's quite haunting.
William and Harry have said they want the inquest to be transparent and to be as quick as possible. Well, I think if by transparent they mean thorough, there's no doubt that the coroner intends to be thorough. We've seen that already. And as for speed, I think it would be a shame if thoroughness were sacrificed for speed. I think that we've waited this long for it. It might as well take as long as it has to take, particularly if at the end enough people are satisfied that it has reached the truth.
I think there was expectation that something big was going to happen on that first day. But then the coroner began his opening statement, and you could have heard a pin drop. Because this wasn't just a brief outline of uncontested facts. He went straight in to talking about the evidence. He went straight into putting across his point of view, quite subtly, but it was definitely there. And I think Mohammed, to start with, was a little bit surprised. Certainly our lawyers were. But it just shows that even on that first day, Diana and her phenomenon and the process around this still has the power to surprise.
One revelation harked back to the fears Princess Diana expressed to her lawyer the year before she died.
What happened is a few weeks after the crash, Lord Mishcon, who was Diana's former lawyer, had had a meeting with Diana, and she had expressed a number of very serious fears that she had, notably about her life, that she was worried about being bumped off in a car crash and it being made to look like an accident. So concerned was he about this conversation following this car crash in Paris that he wrote down his notes and handed it over to the police. The British police should have handed over to the French, but they didn't. They ignored it. And it only came to light in 2003 when a very similar fear was expressed in what is commonly known as the Burrell letter, which was then made public. And it all emerged that Lord Mishcon had written this note. He'd handed it to the British police and they'd done nothing about it. And the police do need to explain themselves about that.
The coroner also pointed out a serious inconsistency.
There is an apparent discrepancy between what Lord Stevens said to Henri Paul's parents when he met with them in Paris on the 8th of November 2006 and what was said in the Operation Paget report a few weeks later.
On the 8th of November 2006, Lord Stevens went to Henri Paul's parents and said, "Don't worry, your son won't be found drunk in charge of a car." As we know, a few weeks later, Operation Paget was published, where he said that Henri Paul was 3 times over the drink drive limit, and had he been alive, he'd be prosecuted for dangerous driving. So there are 3 options to this discrepancy, which is recorded in police notes. He can't deny that the conversation took place. So there are 3 reasons for this. The first is he doesn't know what's in his own report, which, given that it cost £3.7 million of taxpayers' money, is pretty scandalous. The second option is that he lied to Henri Paul's parents, which again is shocking. Well, the third option is something happened between 8th of November and when the Operation Paget report was published to somehow make him change his tune, and that's what the inquests have to address.
The coroner took the jury to Paris. After 10 months, the jury drew attention to the fact Princess Diana was not wearing a seatbelt and voted 9-2 to blame Henri Paul, though the evidence he was drunk was flawed. The inquest verdict did not feel right to a third of Britons who remained suspicious, but Princess Diana's sons accepted it as correct. Then there were new allegations that emerged in the court-martial of Soldier X, who had been in the SAS.
Include an allegation that the British military may have been involved in the deaths of Diana and Dodi Al-Fayed.
Lord Stevens admitted his inquiry had found no trace for these claims. Then there were new allegations in the court-martial of Soldier N, who had been in the SAS.
He, Soldier N, also told her, the daughter, that it was the redacted XXX who arranged Princess Diana's death, and that has been covered up.
Soldier N's parents claimed they had been threatened if they revealed what he said. Scotland Yard denied there was any substance to these claims, but the allegations made by our anonymous witness were never formally investigated. Then, 4 months before the 20th anniversary of her death, Princess Diana's youngest son broke a royal taboo. He talked openly to the Daily Telegraph about how he had repressed the grief he felt at the loss of his mother.
For me specifically, if you look back to the fact that I lost my mum at the age of 12 on the sort of public platform of which it was, and then everything else that happens of being in the spotlight and this sort of role and the pressures that come with it, and then going to Afghanistan, and then but then working in the personnel recovery unit with all of the soldiers as well, and taking on a lot of their issues. Anybody would look at that and go, okay, there must be something wrong with you. You can't be totally normal. There must be something wrong. And I sort of buried my head in the sand for many, many years. I can safely say that losing my mum at the age of 12 and therefore shutting down all of my emotions for the last 20 years has had a quite serious effect on not only my personal life but also my work as well. And it was only 3 years ago, funny enough, from the support around and my brother and other people saying, look, you really need to deal with this. It's not normal to think that nothing's affected you. My way of dealing with it was, sticking my head in the sand, refusing to overthink about my mum, because why would that help? It's only going to make you sad. It's not going to bring her back. So from an emotional side, I was like, right, don't ever let your emotions be part of anything. So I was a typical sort of 20, 25, 28-year-old running around going, life is great, or life is fine.
Yeah.
And that was exactly it. And then started to have a few conversations, and actually all of a sudden all of this grief that I'd never processed started to come to the forefront. I was like, there's actually a lot of stuff here I need to deal with.
Prince Harry's honesty is all the more remarkable because the royal family have concealed mental health issues. Cousins of the late Queen Mother were locked away in this asylum in secret for most of their lives. That made Princess Diana's campaigning for the mentally ill very challenging. Princess Diana's 2 sons are now doing her proud, keeping her memory alive as they too campaign for children, mental health, and against landmines. But 20 years on, there are still conspiracy theories and still unanswered questions about her death.